I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Oh, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this attack that happened in Australia. Also, Rob Reiner was found murdered, him and his wife in their home, allegedly killed by their son, who's suffered with addiction for a long while. And unfortunately, the president didn't have nice words to say, and that's become a story, a pretty gross, egregious story. And I just there's good Trump, bad Trump. This is dark Trump. So I have words for that to say. I have words for that. Also, Erika Kirk and Candace Owens have decided to meet today. I'm assuming maybe the meeting may have already happened, but they decided that yesterday. And so I guess we'll hear more about, or maybe we won't hear more. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think it's a great idea. I want to not spend too much time on that because obviously there's other way more important things than that. But yeah, it's a heavy day. Before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go to blacktunes.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, you guys can leave a donation on the website because it just costs a stream and on my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch and other things available on my website, like t-shirts and mugs and so on. And if you guys would like to, support any of my books and things like that, like I got a link to Bigger in my comments. I mean, not my comments, my if you're in the description, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you guys can pick up Bigger, and that'll take you to my book website. And you guys can check out the other ones I have, picture books, chapter books, young adult books with a bunch of different categories like paranormal, romance, historical fiction. And I, of course, have some nonfiction books, like, of course, Guide Blatantly Against Abortion. That's what's right behind me, that ad. So, yeah, you guys can check out the stuff. I hope you guys, other than the tragedies that have occurred, had a good weekend. Church is always good. But yeah, other than that, the different things going on. The news was pretty heavy. Yesterday, I looked at my phone, started scrolling through TikTok, and I saw the news about what happened in Australia. There was a terror attack during a Hanukkah celebration. So you can assume who were the targets for that. And they were attacked. People were attacked by a father and a son duo. And at least 15 were killed. It went on for like 20 minutes. People are saying the police didn't do anything. One of the gunmen was disarmed by a Muslim bystander, who he disarmed the gun, and then the guy just kind of walked out the frame. I don't know what kind of laws they have in situations like that, but of course Australia had mandatory gun buybacks, and they have very strict gun laws. Yet the father was able to get access. He has at least 6 illegal guns and was in a gun club. So now their conversations are more gun laws. And they might want to look how I guess that man got approved. but they definitely should consider other things as well, like how radical Islam is a huge threat to the world, and of course, one of the person who disarmed one of them was a Muslim man. From my understanding, uh, they're not every Muslim obviously wants to go out and commit jihad, um, but the religion says some violent things. um, so that was an insane thing to hear. There's also a shooting in Brown, which right now, um, the authorities and people in charge sound really incompetent. So there's still a lot to figure out about what's going on there. But I saw a new story on TikTok about those two things. And I just left a comment, and I said, this is horrific. I said, this is horrific. And someone commented under my comment and said, no, it is not. And what a gross thing to say. And so I clicked on their profile, and it was an Arab man. His profile picture said, bleep the Jews. And his bio said like free Palestine. He didn't have a lot of videos. And they weren't in English. One of the captions was like translated. And there was something about a boycott regarding Gaza or something like that to like different celebrities or something. And then he had some videos when he went to some kind of soccer tournament in Qatar. And I told my sister about it. She's like, did you report that? And I'm like, TikTok isn't going to take down his page or even his profile because he said, no, it's not. I report stuff all the time on TikTok. And unless you're saying that a man can't get pregnant, they're good on your content, basically. Well, some that's a bit of an exaggeration, but they do take down comments. If my sister got a lot of different flags for saying things like men can't get pregnant or men can't become women, which I've talked about and have screenshots so to verify that's true. But sometimes I've had comments taken down because I've said that something is silly. I don't know why that is triggering, but I've had people say all kinds of racist things to me or other things, and they'll leave that stuff up or leave those videos up, and they'll leave misinformation, like blatant crazy misinformation videos and stuff up. I had no confidence that there was anything for TikTok to do about that situation. I did personally block that person, and I took some screenshots of their stuff, and I didn't know if I was going to just do a video to raise some kind of awareness, because I'm just like, this is it's disturbing, and you're like, but how many more people are like that, and I don't know if that's a flag for like put him on the no travel list or something, but I want there's just a lot of people who say unfortunately crazy stuff like that and celebrate violence. Think about how many people say globalize it intifada. And granted, there's a lot of people who have no idea what that is. But geez, for people who are serious about what that is, what happened in Australia was globalizing the intifada. What I was thinking, sometimes, well, I guess periodically I would think back to like early 2000s, and I'm like, man, I remember there being like terrorist attacks in Israel like all the time, hearing about it like on the news. I remember studying it a bit, and when I was in high school, and it just seemed like it was happening like all the time it was happening. And then it clicked, I guess, because I hadn't looked too much into that time. I just remember it being so like violent. And I'm like, what happened to like kind of end that stuff? And so I was at an anti-Semitism conference, and they were talking about that time period, and talking about what globalized intifada was. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what that time period was that I recognize as such a violent time for Israel. That was the second intifada. And so I was sitting next to my older sister, and I was like, told her like, oh gosh, all this just kind of clicked together. And then she just kind of started talking about like the stuff that she remembered from that time. And I shortly after that, I did actually go to Israel and talk to a colonel who actually like built the wall. It's mostly fencing though, separating like the West Bank and stuff like that, and explaining what was going on, what was it like before, and how much terrorism there was, and how just having a fence, because it's mostly fence. There is like a concrete big wall, but that's like not a big portion of it. It's mostly just fencing. And having security and all that stuff save so many lives. Um, but it's why would anyone want that sort of violence to be globalized? Because this is what it is. And so I saw Zoran Mamdani like say something like, "Oh, this is a horrific attack," and people pointing out like, "What do you think globalized intifada means? What do you think it means? It means more dead Jews." And do people think it'll stop with them either? Like when Osama bin Laden wrote his letter about 9/11, um, which it's interesting when people like Dave Smith or whatever try to act like his issues were just America or busybodies and stuff and like people's business. When he also said, "We're calling you to Islam," and Bill Clinton was a degenerate, and we want you guys to be Islamic, and you're immoral. And so there's radical Islam. It was about being radical for their religion. Okay. Also, I guess you could say it was foreign interference, but the fact that we helped Israel exist, they have issue with it. And they don't consider that to be just a thing that the government did. He considered all of the Americans to be guilty of helping Israel become a nation, and so they felt justified in attacking civilians. So um it's just really not going to end with them taking out the Jews. Plus, you know, infidels are not just Jews, guys. So my my heart's really broken for these people. And I I was just listening to Ben talk about this, and he said that Jews very much like unfortunately expect things like this. People shouldn't have to live like this. People shouldn't have to expect things like this and be like, "Oh, well, it's another thing. We'll keep surviving." And obviously you have to keep going and keep living life, and you can't just roll over and cry in your bed until you die of natural causes. But it really shouldn't be this way. Like, one of the people who died was a man who survived the Holocaust. He died protecting his wife. Can you imagine surviving the horrors of the Holocaust, and then you go to some nice little beach Hanukkah celebration and you're killed by a father and son duo? And then we're not too far removed from October 7th, which someone was there who experienced and survived October 7th. People shouldn't have to live like this. But in Australia, right after October the 7th, there were people who were um basically supporting terrorism. I have a clip. Um, a crowd at Sydney Opera House chanting "Gas the Jews." So when this sort of hatred um is abundant, what do you do? Like, are you surprised? Yeah, you get it. You get it. There was all kinds of videos that were like insane right after October um the 7th. This was 2 days after it. People having meetings blaming what happened on Israel, victim blaming. I'm like, well, when you keep people, in living concentration camps, and you have all these blockades and blah blah, why why are there barriers? Why are there blockades? Because of terror. There's plenty of aid and things going into Gaza. There's money that people were taking for themselves to enrich themselves and to help build terror tunnels instead of taking care of their people. But Michigan, Dearborn, there are all kinds of meetings going on that were insane. People marching in the street in New York and other places. People tearing down missing persons posters with babies and children and grandmothers on it. Just really disgusting behavior. Horrific, disgusting behavior. I just can't imagine. Well, it's hard to comprehend people being that evil. It's funny. There's this atheist who's a deconstruction person on TikTok. I've seen a back and forth with her and this pretty popular Christian girl named Raven. And the deconstruction girl is just like, nobody, like, you're not born thinking that you're evil or people are evil, and you have to be told that you need a savior, blah 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 blah. I'm like, how can you not understand there's evil people in this world, and people are definitely in need of a savior, man. Like, how can you just look at how awful the world is and not reflect on the need? People ripping down posters of babies, missing persons. And when you go to Israel, they still have, at the Rabin Museum, there's all these displays of the hostages that have come home, or um there were some died, were killed, and they marked which ones when they came home, but you can see still that was up. And there are people who would meet every day to talk, to sing songs, to just kind of be there for the families. There wasn't a big crowd when we went there, but there was a group together that was singing songs just to kind of let the families know, like, hey, we're still thinking about you. And at that point when we went, all the living remaining hostages had been returned, and they were still waiting for, when we first landed, there were 4 bodies. I think there's still 3 bodies that we're waiting for, which I wouldn't have released any of Hamas's prisoners until they released those bodies. But that was one thing I should have asked the IDF. But the spokesperson we were talking to, I'm sure that maybe that was above her pay grade or whatever. So that's why I didn't bother asking that question. I did think about it, because I would have been like, because I so hated that they released their prisoners. But I certainly wouldn't have done it until we got at least all the living hostages and the bodies back, because I guess really what's their incentive? Um, Someone said Islamic people are waiting for orders. They believe in Jesus, but put Christ under their false prophet Allah. Yeah, they do. I mean, I don't know how much people know about what they believe as far as Jesus goes. They do believe that he was a prophet. I'll hear a lot of Muslims try to claim that Jesus was Muslim himself. But they believe that he was born of a virgin. They believe that he's coming back again, but they believe he's coming back again until all the Christians they got it wrong. They don't believe that he was God, or that he claimed to be God, and they don't believe that he died on the cross. There's different beliefs that they have, that Allah made someone. People believe that it was someone, but it wasn't really Jesus. That Jesus, there's a theory about him escaping to India, and things that don't make a lot of sense. But to me, it's like, you okay, why not trust these first century accounts, and why should we trust an account 600 years later from a warmonger who married a 6-year-old, that this, you know, because he said so? Like, it's where's the proof of the divine revelation? uh People will, say that the Bible's corrupted, which doesn't make sense, because there are scriptures in the Quran that, point to the validity of the gospel and stuff, and that we should judge by the book. And why would you do that if it was corrupted? So my question, when Muslims say it's corrupted, I'm like, when was it corrupted? We have so many manuscripts, very old copies, and so on. So when was it corrupted? It doesn't seem to make any sense. Yeah, so I'll hear people say, especially people who want to destroy Judeo-Christian values and try to break away the relationship, especially that evangelical Christians have with the Jewish community. And they'll say, like, oh, well, they don't even like Jesus, and they said all this stuff about Jesus, and they don't serve the same God. What about Muslims? They respect Jesus. And I'm like, I don't think their view of Jesus is actually very respectful. But we do, at least, I mean, I want people to accept Jesus as their Lord and their Savior. And I wish that for everyone. But we do have a foundation in the Old Testament, and Jesus is the fulfillment of that. But everything that Muslims are teaching is runs contrary to the foundation of Christianity. If Jesus wasn't God and he didn't die on the cross, he didn't rise again, then what is our faith? Like, those things are really important. So if Satan was going to create a counter religion, he might keep some things, but he's going to alter the big ones. So when Jesus was, if you read the book of John, and he's just like, you guys talk about, like, the old, the scriptures and all the stuff in the law, like, everything is pointing to me. Like, I'm the point of everything. I want everybody to get that. I, like, sincerely do. But it's like, I feel like when it comes to, and of course Jewish people won't believe this, but they're like missing the major point. But the Muslims are trying to debunk everything, and their whole fan fiction runs contrary to our religion. So it's very fascinating to see people try to turn Christians against Jews by really pacifying Islam, which Tucker Carlson is doing it. Candace Owens is doing it. I even saw Nick Fuentes say that the Muslim concern is overblown, which I thought was interesting. Tucker is really bad. Candace has had some really strong mask off moments with that. That's something that's important to talk about. I've been working on an article kind of detailing that stuff, and I'm just going to do a more detailed video with different snippets about it. Tucker is like building a house in Qatar. He was there. He's trying to convince everybody that Qatar is a better ally than Israel, that it would be better to live as a Christian in Qatar. He writes a lot against Israel in his newsletters, while trying to make it seem like Zoran Mamdani's not that bad of a guy, doesn't have all these like jihad connections, and it's getting pretty bad. It's getting pretty bad. So that's the conversation that I guess everybody, I think, really should be having, and I've been having it a bit, and other folks having it, and hopefully that's where the focus will shift, and I'll press it, and my reach isn't as obviously as big as some other folks, but hopefully other people will draw some attention to it. Someone the other day wrote, I don't even know why they wrote it. I don't even know if it was related to anything. It might have been on my post about what happened in Australia. But they said it was a black guy, and he's like, Jews made the slave ships that brought over the ancestors, and so why are you pro-Jew or something like that? And so I went on their profile, and they had like some anti-Semitic propaganda regarding like slave ships on it. That's that he shared. He didn't make it. Like, I've seen the meme or whatever online, and so I'm like, okay, this is probably where he's getting that from, and I just wrote a little bit of a comment but regarding that. But like, the two biggest threats to the West are Marxism and Islamic fundamentalism. And like, you trying to reach in the past, like, you're wrong about your propaganda, but trying to be like, we should all be against the Jews because they made the slave ships or something. Like, it's absurd. I'm like, I'm is our first foreign war was because of Islam, because the Pirates of Tripoli, they believed that they had the authority to attack us. We didn't do anything to them. We hadn't. We weren't messing around in the Middle East, and they felt like they could come over here and tell us a little something. No, that's just what they felt that they had the authority to do because of the Quran and Allah. And it hasn't stopped being an area of concern. So people trying to downplay it, especially people who are trying to downplay it, while also making it seem like Zionism and the Jews are the big threat, and they're trying to disrupt and Judeo-Christian values. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. Like Tucker Carlson trying to make it seem as though we don't have ties to the Old Testament. My example is when he was with Megyn Kelly and tried to say that American values are based on the New Testament. And I'm like, what do you mean the New Testament? Like, there's Old Testament scriptures on the Liberty Bell. The idea that Blackstone's theory about that morphed into like the justice system, as far as like you have to be proven guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. The idea that I'd rather let like 100 guilty men go free and just to protect the one innocent person. That's formulated based off of the story about Abraham, bargaining with God over Sodom. The Ten Commandments is Old Testament. It's repeated in the new one, but it's obviously from the Old Testament. The idea that we're made in the image of God, that's in the Old Testament. The idea that you don't punish children for their for the sins of the fathers, that's Old Testament. But he tries to act like it's the ideals, or even I know God himself is so different, Old and New Testament, because he wants to make it seem as though Jewish people feel like they can collectively punish other people like that, and they are like the chosen people, and that's why they can murder people in Gaza so easily, which they're not murdering people in Gaza. There is a such thing as just warfare. And but he thinks they're purposely murdering Christians and purposely murdering women and children and so on. Or that might not actually be what he thinks. He might just be saying that to appease whatever agenda he has. So I will be trying to expose more and more of that, but man, we got some issues in the West. We got some major issues in the West right now. Just pray for peace. Pray for the victims, families. It's really hard to lose people, especially around times that you're supposed to be celebrating. So just keep them in your hearts and your minds. And it's just really a tragedy. And I'm sure it's not I pray it's not. It's the end of this stuff and we don't hear anything else crazy, but Christmas is coming up. We just got to pray for a competent governments all around, especially to protect Christians abroad, in countries like Nigeria and so on. Even going to celebrations in the US, you got to pray that they're on it about the security, because you don't want a situation where cops are waiting 20 minutes and not doing anything. That's crazy, by the way. That's one of the when Uvalde happened, the parents weren't allowed to go in and get their kids. I was of the opinion, because some people would say we need guns in the classroom. I'm like, I don't know about that. I didn't know at the time that there were actually guns in some classrooms. But the idea that the police could be outside, and there's also parents outside, they won't let the parents come in, and you're trapped in the classroom with the killer hunting you down, and you not being able to protect yourself, and not even just about the teachers being able to protect their students, but not being able to protect yourself. Why should someone be put in that kind of situation? The police do not have a constitutional duty to protect you. They don't. We expect them to. That's what they get hired for. But if they was like, well, I'm scared, I'm not going to do it. Like, if you wanted to take them to the court or something over that, the Supreme Court said they don't have a constitutional duty to do that. So your self-preservation is in your hands. It's in your hands. And when you pass your children off to someone for hours a day, You expect them to be safe. You expect them. You hope that they're safe. That there's competent police around. That maybe the school has security. You hope those things, but that might not be the case. So one way or another, you as a parent, you got to make sure that your kid is as safe as possible. And unfortunately, gun laws aren't going to be the thing that can stop everything. When Charlie Kirk was killed, people brought up gun control, like, oh, Charlie Kirk, he was against gun control a lot. And he said that there was a line that he said that people skewed about how he's like, gun deaths are worth it. It's worth it for kids to die to have guns. It's not what he said. He was explaining a reality of, as long as there is an armed population, that gun deaths are going to occur, but there are ways to mitigate that. So he definitely didn't want to sacrifice children and other people. And that's just, and he would compare it to people driving in cars and other things like that. We take some kind of risk having these things out in society. We take a risk with baseball bats. People get murdered with baseball bats and knives and all sorts of things. But do you still want your kids to be able to play baseball? Or have baseball bats for home defense, or to have knives to cook in the kitchen? Of course. But there are ways to mitigate these disasters. But Charlie Kirk was murdered by an inherited gun that was his grandpa's gun. I think it was like a World War II gun and a bolt action rifle. Like, unless you're going to send the government to do some kind of deep dive and mass confiscate every weapon, how do you stop something like that? How do you stop something like that? Some people would say mandatory buybacks, but Australia still got hit up. And I'm sure they'll learn all the wrong lessons from it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner, famous director. He was also on All in the Family. But he did Stand By Me. He did Princess Bride. That's like Ted Cruz's favorite movie. I like Princess Bride. I'm not like obsessed with the cult classic of it, but there's you killed my father, not prepared to die. Like, there's great parts in it, definitely. I haven't seen it in a long time. But he was found murdered in his home, he and his wife. And the news broke about that last night. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrific. And then I saw reports to like, oh, it's about to get worse as far as the news regarding the story. And I'm like, about to get worse. Because I'm like, what? How? They're in like LA? Like, I know terrible things happen in LA, but I'm like, how did this happen? Like, they found them with stab wounds. And then People magazine reported that it was his son. Well, their son. And that is obviously ultra horrific. And their son has struggled with drug abuse and obviously has issues. And it's been reported that they were in some kind of argument with their son at a Conan O'Brien party. At least that's the news that I've seen going around. And whatever I don't know, grief I guess they had it as a family, the son took it out on his parents. And a lot of people don't like Rob Reiner, especially because he's on the left. That doesn't make it okay that someone took his life. And unfortunately, President Trump had some words. Um, unfortunately, had some words. Before I tell you his words, Rob Reiner was on with Piers Morgan after Charlie was killed. I want to go ahead and play that.
When you first heard about the murder of Charlie Kirk, what was your immediate gut reaction to it?
Well, horror, absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service, that the memorial they had, was exactly right. And totally, I believe, I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in doing to others, and I believe in forgiveness. And what she said to me was beautiful, and absolutely, when she forgave his assassin, and I think that is admirable.
So, there was a lot of people who said a lot of horrific things after Charlie Kirk died, and people were screenshotting it, tracking it, getting people fired for it, all kinds of different stuff. I was mortified with a lot of people's content and the things they said about Charlie Kirk celebrating it, and not just celebrating it, but people taking his words, a lot of it out of context, to push this idea that he got what he deserved. And I have been fighting against that since he died. It's been 3 months, and I'm still, arguing with people about it, debating people about it, making content about Charlie Kirk and the Black Pilot thing and affirmative action and all kinds of different stuff, all kinds of things. Someone today wrote in I did one of the easiest things to debunk was the thing about Charlie Kirk calling Chank an Asian racial slur, because that's obviously not what he said. He was calling Chank by his name. And someone in that comment section was like, "Go shut your bleep up. Go back in the kitchen. Charlie Kirk probably doesn't even think you could make a good sandwich." And it was a woman who wrote that. And I'm like, first of all, as big as I am, you don't think I can make a sandwich? I could probably make a really good sandwich. And I replied to her, and I'm like, it could be that you just want to project your own sexism and use Charlie Kirk as a shield to do that, like a conduit to do that. That's what I think is a problem. Like, so someone else yesterday wrote a comment saying, "What do you think about Charlie Kirk saying that 2/3 of Black people don't have fathers, and that Black culture contributes to fatherlessness, and that the welfare system, contributes to that, and all the single motherhood and blah blah blah." And I'm like, okay, well, the 2/3 number sounds like it might be a little high, but do you not think the rest of that stuff is true? Like, do you not think the rest of that stuff was true? And so I explained to him, as a white liberal, that and I guess he could consider himself a leftist, but just obviously not a Republican. I explained to him that for those of you who don't know, like, half my educational experience and neighborhoods and stuff that I grew up in, half of it was like urban environment, and then I ended up moving to a rural part of the state, where I was one of the only few Black people then. And then after I graduated, we moved into the suburbs, and now I'm like more in a city area now. But I grew up with girls who had plans, like their aspirations were like, I'm going to get knocked up and collect welfare. I grew up with people whose parents were 13 when they had them because that's when they were sexually active. Like um I the I'm like these things. My parents were virgins when they got married. I grew up in a two-parent household. That was not common. We used to go to different churches and my dad would preach and we'd sing and we'd testify before we'd sing. And one of my sisters would be like, I'm saved, I'm sanctified, and I'm still a virgin. And all the church mothers would be like, yes, yes, yes. But some of the girls would be like, I'm like, where she's like 15, 16 years old saying this. And it's so unbelievable to people that she's a virgin. Like it was a shame. Um and then I also mentioned like Royal Meeker worked in the government, the Woodrow Wilson administration, and he was a eugenicist. He wanted people to be on the government teat so they could control them. So, you know, and I'm like, there back in the day, there were some shows that discouraged teen pregnancy, like the Cosby Show. Bill Cosby was like, we are not having a teen like pregnancy thing on the Cosby's and stuff, like, but that's not like how it is. There's a lot of ratchet TV on. Do you think Biggie and Tupac and Snoop Dogg were good for the culture? Do you think Diddy, like, all those are good for the culture? Like, obviously that didn't contribute to good things. And so his response to me was, oh, so you don't care about misinformation and how he brings bad stereotypes and makes people hate black people. But I'm like, no, that's not what I said. And I also said to him, like, Charlie Kirk pushed that the solution was biblical values, people getting married, having families. And he didn't care about the solutions that Charlie would push. He's just like, he would say things that were offensive. Yeah, the truth is sometimes offensive, but I'm like, it doesn't sound like you care about black people. That's what you just want to be mad at Charlie Kirk. Like, it's obviously true that there's an issue when you don't have families that are together. And you have different baby mamas. Or you know, there's great single moms that do amazing things, whether they're white or black or whatever. But it's harder to raise a family like that when you are numero uno and you have to be everything to that child. It's difficult. And obviously not the design, because you can't make a baby by yourself. They're supposed to have two parents. So anyway, people say all kinds of stuff about Charlie and have been saying all kinds of stuff about Charlie to justify what happened to him, or to at least to say, some might say like, oh, well, I'm not saying it was okay what happened to him, but kind of like it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And that's gross. I appreciate Ron. I'm sorry. I said Ron. Rob Reiner not doing that. I appreciate him saying it's horrific what happened to Charlie, and it shouldn't happen to anyone else. I wish that President Trump, he didn't need to say anything about Rob Reiner. Sometimes when people pass away and I don't care for them too much, I just don't say anything. I just don't say anything. Some like political figures, I'm like, it's okay, I don't gotta say anything. For a little while, at least, you know, let the grieving process happen a little bit. I don't have to pile. I know other people are saying negative things. I don't gotta. I ain't gotta say anything about it. I'm gonna say anything about it. Trump didn't have to say anything about Rob, but he unfortunately did. So, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is cringe of the year for me. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration suppressed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. This is a crazy thing to write about someone who was murdered, two people who were murdered. And I'm really disappointed. And people could say, "Oh, well, Trump says crazy stuff like that sometimes, or a lot of times he's a jerk. Why is this thing disappointing?" Because it's still terrible. There are bright moments with Trump, like when he was I don't know, that moment when he was alerted that Ginsburg died. He's like, wow, and he took a moment to gather himself, and he's like, whether you agree with her or not, she was a remarkable woman, you know. And then he went off on the plane, I'm sure, to expedite replacing her on the Supreme Court. There are moments like that. There are moments when you see him and he's so sweet. This was dark and so self-absorbed. Like, what do you mean he died because he drove people crazy due to Trump derangement syndrome? What do you have to do with what their son did? I don't know if he knew that at the time when this was pushed out. Was this last? It was this morning. He must have known. I don't know. Rapid Response pushed it out at like 10 this morning. I think last night it was reported. Yeah. He must have known by then it was his son. He must have known by then. I think he should have got calls from the groups of pastors that are usually surrounding him. He should have got calls. Unfortunately, I know that Daryl Scott decided to play a whataboutism and pointed to Rob Reiner saying negative things after Rush Limbaugh died. And but even what Rob Reiner said about Rush still isn't like the same. I mean, he said he didn't like him. He said, you know, we have to stop more people from basically becoming Rush. Rush, he did die from, you know, illness. Everyone does die one day. I still don't feel like I feel like these are different categories. Like Charlie was obviously assassinated in person. Rob was murdered by a family member. That's tragic. Dying of natural causes. You don't have to say anything negative immediately about these people when they die in any of these circumstances. But what Trump said was terrible. Like, come on. It was. I don't care how much you support him, it was. We can just it's okay to say that. Especially if you're a pastor. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say, hey, can we reflect on what Jesus would do in a situation like this and how we're supposed to love our enemies? It makes me think back to Charlie's memorial when Erika said that she forgave Tyler Robinson. And then, you know, Trump got up, was like, you know, he complimented her. He's like, I hate my enemies and I don't want the best for them. And it was kind of funny then because, you know, it was a little self-deprecating and to like lift up Charlie being a good person, and Trump has a lot to obviously work on. But he meant that stuff. But it's not always like, because he could, if you flatter him, he'll like, you know, come around. But sometimes he holds like crazy grudges. I don't know. He's definitely a different guy. He's definitely a different guy. Many people are speaking out about his comments and they don't like it, and good. I'm glad there's a lot of people who aren't fond of Trump's comments on this matter. But it doesn't reflect well upon him. It doesn't reflect well upon his administration or his voters or America. And he obviously represents a lot as the president of the United States of America. Now, for anyone out there who's like, well, you voted for him. I did. I very much still didn't want Kamala Harris to be president of the United States, and I still stand by that. But I am ready to get to politics, back to like I don't know if I want to say back to, because I mean there's always been people who are verbally, I guess, less refined is a way we'll put it. I need to see a little bit more adulting. I hope, you know, jabs and things like this aren't going to be a continuation of where Republican Party is headed toward. I want to see like some America first, yes, serious kind of policy and stuff, but I want to see a bit more decorum. I don't need to have another meme president kind of thing. I'm kind of over it. It was fun while it lasted, but I don't want to cringe every time, like brace myself like, did you see what the president tweeted, and be like, I don't want to have to keep doing that like forever. Like there were wonderful things with Trump, and there's good and there's bad. This is part of the bad. It's so unnecessarily bad though. He didn't need to write this. He so did not need to write this. And what's really upsetting about it is I know that he knows what it's like to have someone in the family that struggled with addiction because of his brother. He knows what that's like. And I don't know if he knows what it's like to have someone who struggles with mental illness types of situations and stuff too, but that is also rough for people to have to deal with. And it's too bad what happened to Rob and his wife. And to die like that, be killed by a loved one, your own son. I'm disappointed in the president today. I am. So anyway, last thing I want to mention before I let you go is that Erika Kirk did decide to meet with Candace Owens, and I'm assuming it's probably happened by now. I'm not positive. Let me just, I don't see that trending or people talking about it. I guess I'm here, and let me just show you guys the tweet if you haven't seen it. I'd be surprised if you haven't seen it by now, but Candace Owens and I are meeting for a private in-person discussion on Monday, December 15th. Real Candace Owens and I have agreed that public discussions, live streams, and tweets are on hold until after this meeting. I look forward to a productive conversation. Thank you. And I don't know what will come out of it. I don't think that Erika owes Candace anything. I think Candace owes Erika the world, and obviously an apology. I don't think Candace can be trusted at all. And even if she like talks to her face to face and she agrees to stop and she actually concedes, maybe that's all that Erika really wants. But I feel like it's kind of beyond that. And obviously Erika has so much going on with her husband being assassinated, the trial, raising the children, her mother dying of cancer as well. She's got so much going on, and on top of all that, there's all the conspiracies and her not wanting to taint a jury pool, and then all the harassment that's going on with Turning Point and her online. So there's so much stuff going on right now. Maybe she just really wants it to stop, and maybe it's not her vibe to just I don't know, fight back like might be necessary to take on Candace. Maybe that's just not kind of within her. She's willing to let bygones be bygones. I don't know. And if there's some kind of breaking news regarding that while we're speaking, you guys can let me know. But they met, or they're meeting or whatever. What I would do, I guess, if I was going to have that meeting, is to say, this is a cease and desist. Like, this is a formal notice of, if you continue on, you're going to face legal action. And I would still continue on with the live stream, addressing her lies and debunking them, because there's going to be people who don't care. There's people who are totally kind of in a cult as far as her content. There's people who probably understand it's not true, but they find it entertaining. And even to push the lies, the conspiracy, they find it entertaining. They don't see these people as real people who they're affecting. So maybe you're not going to reach them. There are people, I think, that can be reached by just showing them the facts that she's been dishonest, that she lies about a lot of stuff. If you watch her content faithfully, I don't know how you cannot know that. I don't understand how you couldn't know that. But perhaps there are some more people that can be reasonably reached if Turning Point just kind of laid out the stuff. I think that she's been a huge stain on the right, and that she needs to be thoroughly rebuked, I suppose, at this point. So I think, I don't know, you could say that that's not on Erika to do. It really should have been on Charlie to do, in a lot of regards. Not just Charlie, but I mentioned this last week, like I know they're friends and so on, but it's not like they just have a disagreement on taxes. Candace has been spewing some really crazy, divisive, dark, destructive things for a long time, and he could have done at least with what Dennis Prager did and addressed her. He said, Candace, like, I looked through all this stuff. I'm writing you this letter. Here's this information. And just so you know, he still felt like he needed to make it public, and he did. And Charlie probably should have done something along those lines, and other conservatives should have been speaking out about stuff that Candace has been doing and been saying for the past couple of years. And now Turning Point is going to be addressing her after she's been attacking them personally regarding Charlie and other stuff. And this is something that should have been nipped in the bud before Charlie passed away. And unfortunately, Turning Point has to pick up the pieces with this. I think they're still going to have a lot of issues in the future, considering their lineup, their roster of people who are still going to AmFest, like Tucker Carlson, for example. And I don't know if they have it in them to make it in the long run. Because Charlie was the face, Charlie did drive it so much, and they still have a lot of content that they can use for Charlie and push, and other people that can step up and do well. And I think to me, Erika, some of the stuff that she says, are she could be a true force with time, but there's a lot of wolves that are within the conservative movement, and I don't understand why they've been platforming them. Not that they need to, because they have their own reach, but you do have to gatekeep ideas and movements. And I understand people want more people in their tent, but you have to like they have to assimilate. Just like if people come and immigrate to the United States of America, we don't want them to just be here and morph the country into their third world ideas. We want them to assimilate to the ideals of America and become American citizens and not try to make it Somalia or whatever, like or other places. Like we want you to take on our Western values. That's what we want. That's what we expect. But you can't just keep growing the right tent to get all these voters in, and then it just morphs to the point where what are you even believing? What are we even standing for anymore? And Charlie Kirk, he was very fierce about keeping Nick Fuentes out. He'd be very fierce when rebuking those groypers who would come and try to push those sorts of ideals. And I don't understand why Tucker Carlson. They ought to know that he's been saying crazy stuff. I know they're really busy, but it's been going on for a minute. And I know Charlie didn't like people telling him what to do. But unfortunately, I know some people who don't like being told what to do, and they double down and they make the wrong decisions. Just because I've been debunking misinformation regarding Charlie Kirk for the past 3 months or whatever doesn't mean that I didn't have disagreements with Charlie, that he was some kind of perfect young man that had all the answers. He made mistakes, and I think Turning Point is continuing to make some mistakes. And I hope they handle Candace the right way, I suppose. But if they're just, if this is just a please stop, and I don't think that's enough. She's going to do whatever she wants to do. And she obviously has the right to do what she wants to do and the right to run her company the way that she wants to run it. But there's been too much stuff publicly stated. And I think they owe it to a lot of their defenders and donors and all kinds of people to really still address this stuff. Unless they can convince her to go on and debunk herself and apologize for the crazy things that she's been saying. I think they should still run their live stream, to be frank. But some people have asked why won't they sue them, or why haven't they sued them? When you have public figures and stuff, it's just defamation lawsuits can be tricky or whatever anyway. But you do have to prove malice, right? But malice isn't just I knew these things weren't true and I pushed them anyway. There is like I think it's like reckless regard for the truth or something like that. That's also included. So if this is like a meeting of notice, like we're telling you to stop, and if you continue, XYZ will happen. And if they are like presenting her with the facts to say, hey, the things that you're saying are lies, and we think that they're lies, and there's this is formally like done just to make her understand these things, and she continues, then they're going to have a better setup for if they decide to go after her. But there's still a reason why you should do it publicly, like as far as like putting the information out there, because the Macrons, they are suing Candace, and people are like, well, why did they just prove that she's not a man? They did. They sent evidence to her. There's evidence that that she was wrong, and Candace kept doubling down. There's a lot of her fans that don't understand that Candace got the information. She just didn't care. She didn't care. So people need, I think it would be better if people just kind of knew, so she can't just keep gaslighting and lying to everybody. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. Another fascinating thing that happened was that Steven Crowder did release the town hall video of why Candace was fired. I don't have enough time to talk about the today. I did touch on her. I did a video about her reaction. And I did post it on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I think I might have put it on Instagram too. I did. So you guys can go catch that on my socials. But they mentioned some interesting things about her interview with Andrew Tate and some other things that I want to touch on, but I'm probably going to table that until tomorrow. So I don't know why Stephen really released it. It certainly didn't make the Daily Wire look bad. It really justified them. They took too long too, doing something about Candace, but I know they contracts and whatnot. But anyway, that's all I got to say today. Please go to blacktunes.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support me very much. To appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. You guys can check out, t-shirts and things there. You guys can also check out my different books that I have. I have 19 altogether. There's a link in the description that'll take you to my book website if you click on the link for bigger, and then you guys can learn more about what I got. But I got all kinds of stuff for folks. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Stay safe out there.